What's good YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I want to do a breakdown of my ARC 3.0 build and the weapons that I am using. The first thing that I want to get out of the way is the stat distribution. In previous seasons, I used to have triple 100s and run something like tier 3 intellect because bubble used to regenerate really fast. But now that we have the ARC 3.0, Thunder Crash has a longer cooldown and the meta's a little bit different, so I had to change some of the stats here. What I'm still keeping here is going to be 100 resilience because I am a Titan, I want that barricade quickly. And it also grants me resistance to flinch. Next up is the recovery stat, tier 10, always gonna have tier 10. And I have a tier 8 discipline so I can get grenades quickly. Having grenades is very important. Now, I also want to make sure I have tier 5 strength, so for whatever chance I use my melee ability, I don't have to wait that long to get my melee back quickly. I'm using tier 6 intellect, which gives me a 7-minute 10-second cooldown. I could get tier 7 intellect and it'll make it faster, but I find this to be a pretty good spot to actually compete in this current meta. And when I say compete, I'm just keeping in mind the supers like Bubble and Well of Radiance, because they can get it much faster, and sometimes it's way more clutch to have a super ready to counter them instead of just waiting until round 4-4 and trying to delay time until you get that Thunder Crash, right? So after some testing, this was the go-to spot for me. Now, the way that I achieve the stat distribution is I have a resilience mod in the helmet slot, another resilience mod in my gauntlet, and this I have a resilience mod, but also I have radiant light. This is going to give me the plus 20 strength so that I don't have to use extra stats elsewhere on my armor to achieve the tier 5 like I mentioned. Now I'm also using unflinching hand cannon because I have the energy for it, hand cannon mods, and then hand cannon targeting. Since I'm going to be using a sniper rifle, I'll take advantage of the scout rifle targeting. Back to the mods here. Radiant Light gets procced thanks to quick charge, so I can do swaps from a sniper rifle to a shotgun. I don't really have a need for any other mods here. You're welcome to change it, but I just keep it on because I'm too lazy to swap. So if I find myself wanting a shotty, a quick little swap and I'm good. It's more important for me to have the handling bonus than it is for me to have something else in the armor. So because of these two mods being ARC, they actually proc with each other. Because normally some people would like to put an ARC mod here so that they can get the benefit of Radiant Light. For my Titan mark, I'm using the stasis energy so I can get my class ability back quickly. I'm still using the charge of light shenanigans, so if I pop a super radiant light, I'm going to get high energy fire. If I get a double kill with a shotgun, I will get high energy fire to proc as well. Comes in handy, you know, sometimes some sweaty rounds you get the high energy fire to proc. You need like one less headshot with a hand cannon to kill. Makes your shotgun one shot more consistently. I have the space, so why not use it, correct? Now the reason I have really low mobility, I like to have it as low as possible because this means that your character doesn't jump as high and you will touch the ground much sooner. For somebody like me who's using Dune Marcher's exotics, this is key because I can just keep rocking the jump as fast as possible, making me feel a lot more fast. Now let's talk about my exotic of choice, Dune Marchers. This exotic was a lot stronger combined with the Sentinel subclass with my previous builds, but the reason I'm still using it is because the movement speed is just way too good to pass up on. If it wasn't for the Dune Marchers, I just wouldn't enjoy the movement on a Titan as much right now. Plus you have the chaining capabilities when you punch somebody, so that is still very helpful to do some additional damage to other targets. Now I aim for really high discipline as well. Having those grenades is very key. Anyways, let's take a look at my subclass. The big shocker here is that I think the barricade is much better than the thruster ability. After experimenting and playing with it a bit, I came to the conclusion that this class ability is just a big letdown and a huge disadvantage for a Titan player because there's many factors to this. The thruster ability doesn't work as good as supposed to. Random things like objects on the floor, slopes can just completely nullify the full effect of this ability, making you just kind of stand still. And the fact that it's a 30-second cooldown, you're losing a barricade, it doesn't work with other exotics. It's just really not worth it right now. When you compare it to something like Icarus Dash that is built in for free on a subclass aspect that you know, you have control of it as well. So this one, it says lateral direction. If you dodge left, you'll go left. But the difference is on something like a Hunter in an Icarus Dash Warlock, when you dodge left, that is not the only direction you're allowed to go. You can turn right side or even backwards, kind of change your direction in the middle of that animation, something that you can't do with thruster. And if you would try, you kind of just pretty much stay in the same spot. So definitely not super helpful. Anyways, hopefully that gives you an idea as to why I'm dodging the thruster. I don't want to spend too much time talking about that. It's just one of those things that's like, I trust the barricade much more inside of PvP. The go-to jump is strafe lift. People usually will go for catapult if they use like scroll wheel to skate, but I don't really care about that. Strafe lift is fine because you can jump in the air much higher, allowing you to have the vertical gameplay. Next up is the shoulder charge for the movement or ballistic slam. I run shoulder charge because it helps you kind of do a nice little shotgun into the shoulder charge combo or a sniper no scope into the shoulder charge combo. You can use it as a dodge that works much better than the thruster sometimes. And the ballistic slam is great if you're playing against players who are not too aware of a player coming in from the sky. You can take advantage of that, of course, but I like the shoulder charge for my personal playstyle much more. Now, the grenade choice will actually shock you here, no pun intended. Most times are rocking the storm grenade, but there's a little build setup that you must use to take advantage of it fully. I personally find the tracking nades to be a little bit too boring for my playstyle. It doesn't really help me achieve what I want. And I still wanted a grenade that had a low cooldown, something like a pulse nade, just too long. Flashbang grenades, not that lethal. Lightning grenades, way too easy to counter and not consistent considering that they can land at random angles and so on and so forth. So I thought about arc bolt grenades. They did get nerfed, but the whole 360 radius of being able to tag a player if you land next to them doing some guaranteed like what 80 damage or so is super clutch to clean up players. And that is why I love this grenade. I'm really good to clean up players because most of the time a storm nade, if you haven't already noticed, you can just walk away from it. Literally try it. You can walk away from the storm nade and it won't damage you at all. This really just punishes players that are unaware. They don't have any movement, like zero movement. They just stay in the nade, and it has some other strengths that we'll get into in a second. For the aspects, I found Juggernaut to actually be the way that I like. I originally thought it wouldn't fit my playstyle. I thought that I didn't care about the Juggernaut shield, that it was too like cheesy and it would only work against like low skill players, but there's actually some interesting things you can use the Juggernaut shield for. And my favorite was the fact that I can totally bait out a sniper shot, a Lorenz shot, problematic things that can one-shot kill you from across the map. You can bait out some of the ammo, block it with the shield, and now the player that had 2 shots of Lorenz is down to 1. And it's because of that that I found the Juggernaut to be super clutch. It also helps when trying to do the shotgun / sniper rifle into shoulder charge combo. You have the overshield, and they might panic, they jump backwards because they see the shield, or they'll ego challenge and try to shoot the barricade. Sometimes you'll die, especially to a good player. It's kind of 50-50, but it's all about the mental game with the Juggernaut shield to kind of scare people and kind of let them know to, hey, you better be on the edge of your seat because I can just run in there as a Juggernaut and try to shoulder charge any of you. This works beautifully well with the ballistic slam as well because you have some extra protection as you jump in the air and get ready to dive down, correct? So keep that in mind. I like the Juggernaut a lot. Definitely my go-to playstyle aspect with a sniper rifle or a shotgun. It doesn't really matter which one. Now, another thing is that I changed this aspect depending on the trials weekend. So for example, it was trial zones on Bannerfall at the time of this recording, and I had to swap to the Touch of Thunder. The playstyles were a little bit slower. There's a lot of snipes and Lorenz to bait out. The capture point proved that I needed a grenade that actually has some AoE and roamed around for a little bit to put pressure on the enemy team. Things like a solar grenade, void wall are really clutch. So I figured, this is the time where a storm nade is actually super clutch. And that's why I equipped it then, and it would help me on capture zones, keeping players off the capture for a little bit, maybe buying me some time before somebody gets a rest. But if you're doing that, I highly recommend that you run the Spark of Magnitude fragment so that your storm grenade lasts longer. If you don't really care too much about that, you only need it to help you for just a little bit, then consider running a different fragment. Anyways, let's take a look at the other aspect. This is definitely a must knockout. It improves the neutral game of the Titan so much. So make sure you run this. Having that increased melee range and damage health regen is just really good. Neutral play, it makes the Titan really strong when you don't have any abilities available to you. I would compare this to something like a Ophidian aspect where you have that increased melee range, you have all that melee teleporting, and you can clean up players with a punch quite easily. So that's nice. Now for the fragments, the must pick fragments here. After some testing and playing around Crucible, I came to the conclusion that I like Spark of Resistance. While surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. I tested this out, and you can eat like 3 headshots from a hand cannon that's a 140 RPM, I believe, so they'll actually have to hit an extra headshot or body shot, whatever. I'm not really too sure about the numbers, but I tested it enough to know that it works. It's very key, and the range is insane. As soon as you get close to like 2 players SMG range, this procs and you're a lot more tanky, allowing you to survive things like a double melee from a player. Plus you get plus sting strength, which is nice. Spark of Feedback. Taking melee damage briefly increases your outgoing damage. Now, I tested this as well. The shoulder charge can potentially one-shot if you have knockout proc and this mod proc. Just as an idea, an example to let you know what it can really do. That bonus melee damage comes in clutch when you're fighting players at close range punching stuff. You'll notice it actually work. So I trust the fragment, and plus it gives you plus 10 resilience, which is wonderful. Next is Spark of Volts. Finishers make you amplified. Yeah, completely useless, but I want that plus 10 recovery, and this is pretty much like the only useless fragment that I'm going to be using. So it puts my stats to a pretty nice spot. Thunder Crash is obviously the must pick super here. It's really good. You can control it. You can combine it with shoulder charge. It helps you shut down a lot of the defensive supers right now that are quite dominant, like Will of Radiance and the bubble. Next up, Fist of Havoc is just unfortunately not that good. It is a shadow of its former self from way back, maybe for a good reason, right? It's a good thing. All right, let's take a look at my weapons. So currently I've been enjoying Palindrome a lot. I've been wanting that extra range to combat a ton of pulse rifles. I have extended barrel, light mag outlaw rangefinder, range masterwork, and I'm using the Icarus grip so I can get the 30 AE threshold to actually hit some shots in the air. It's a nice hand cannon, and I enjoy using it. Couldn't get the god roll, but this one will do the trick. I've also been enjoying Igneous Hammer, Elemental Capacitor boosting and handling a bunch, Rapid Hit helping the stability stay consistent and managing that bloom. Also Icarus Grip to hit the 30 AE, solid hand cannons. If I'm using a special weapon in this slot right here, I'm going to be using the Fawn Verdict. It's the newest one that I've added to my collection. Small bore, accurized, auto loading, opening shot with handling masterwork, and I'm using quick as a sling to swap my weapons quickly. Some people like to opt for range, but the way I like to think is that I don't have Ophidians, so I need to make sure my shotgun is out first before I even consider wanting to one-shot kill somebody, because my shotgun never comes out, I never get to shoot. Now, for my kinetic slots, right now I have been addicted to the Defiance of Yasmin sniper rifle. We covered this on a video already. Won't talk too much about it. That's my sniper right now, my go-to pick. If I'm using a shotgun in this slot, that is a Reese Walker with corkscrew rifling, assault mag, quick draw, iron reach, and the range masterwork with a quick axis sling so I can swap quickly. That all stacks with the quick charge mod, which gives you a 25 plus handling if I'm correct. So the lightweight frames have been pretty fun to use recently. You feel a lot faster, and I've been enjoying that a lot. If I'm not using Reese, I will probably switch to the Ragnhild shotgun with elemental capacitor. It's a high aggressive frame shotgun, so that one's pretty good as well. My primary of choice here for the longest time has been the Austringer. I crafted this with small bore ricochet, Eye of the Storm rangefinder, and I'm using a quick axis sling. Really good hand cannon, of course, but sometimes we want to change it up and use something different, correct? And Palindrome is that for me. I never really used it before. As for power weapons go, Gjallarhorn is still a really top pick, but one of the low-key weapons in the meta right now is the Typhon GL5 with Impulse Amplifier. It's almost a hit scan grenade launcher, and people often cannot really dodge it at all, so it's a really good weapon. Anyways, that pretty much sums up my ARC 3.0 build setup with the perks, mods, and also the weapons that I use. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, let me know in the comments. Like the video if you want to see more of this type of content, and that's pretty much it. Peace.